Hello and welcome to Glitch Cube. We're a gaming podcast, and each week we take a deeper look into the art of video games. As always, I'm Christian.
And I'm Chris.
And welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us once again as we dive further into the world of games. Now, we have discussed something similar to this before, right? We've talked a lot about how games have been looked at as inciting violence in communities amongst individuals, but not just games, music, movies, other sources of media like that. They often get the blame for someone's evil, sinister plot or plans, or just discussing things that they've done as human beings, right? Oh, I saw it in a video game, or I watched this on a movie, so let me go mimic it. It's something that happens all the time. I mean, it's why we have the ESRB ratings and everything like that. But what about other themes in games? Do those hold a weight whenever we try and make our decisions? Do they influence the way we think about the world around us? And we're going to be diving specifically into rebelling against authority. Now, a lot of games have this as a common trope, right? I mean, even Mario is rebelling against King Bowser and his wishes, or, like it's something that's there and it's constant in the background. It's a very easy motivating force when it comes to games and pushing the plot forward. But not just in games, every source of media has this, where there is some sort of authority figure and your hero has to go against them because it's the right thing to do. Now, is that making us as players more sustainable to the idea of rebelling against authority? Is it making us more rebellious by nature? Or is it just a game and we're just enjoying ourselves, man? Stop looking too much into it, dang. But right, like there's so much there like that we can dive into with this idea, this concept of how things have changed our mindset, how we think about the world, how we view things, and how we handle situations. So I'm just curious, like fresh thought, maybe like just when you come up with this idea, and I know, like I said, we've discussed it with aggression and aspects like that. And I think we both have come to the consensus that games don't feed acts of aggression. They don't breed that. They don't make you go out and do those things. It can be used as like an outlet or a scapegoat or things like that. But there's a big difference, I would say, with this concept or with this idea, because it's changing more of your moral compass rather than making you act horrifically in public, right? Like it's more of a subtle change. And I'm curious if you think that games can potentially influence someone to actively want to or be okay with rebelling against an authority figure.
Well, according to Macron in France, video games are the cause for acts of aggression and the riots. But,
Yeah, but they're French.
They're French. But to me...
Sorry, French listeners.
In a lot of ways, games act as an outlet to kind of prevent, I think, people from acting on a lot of aggressions. At least I feel like that's always been kind of the defense of video games with violence, usually, is that, you can just mow down people in a game. You don't have to go out and do it in public. I feel like that's always been kind of the defense of it. It's not a great defense, don't get me wrong, but to me, I've always kind of looked at it like that. It's just
channeling your aggression in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Same as going for a run or
boxing,
blowing off some steam. Yeah.
It's like that. And I think, as the generations evolve and more dark realities happen in real life, that gets reflected in the games, and we start seeing more realistic reactions to the similarities between games and real life, especially when it comes to like authority issues and problems with governments. The whole political climate around the world has been pretty shaky, not just in the US, but in a lot of other countries. There's been a more vocal majority or vocal group in a lot of bigger countries against their governments, for better or for worse. And as games start or developers start seeing that and relating into their games, I think we'll get more specialized. I think that's probably the best term I can use.
Mm.
Form like stories that maybe can be more relatable to, what's going on now. And I mean, there's a lot of
More like
things.
specific to their region or
Yeah, because,
yeah.
You look at a lot of games, and for the most part, like, it's very, like, I don't want to say stereotypical, but it's very like, oh, here's the workers united fighting against, like, their capitalist warlords or their bosses, or, like, we need to take down this, like, fascist country leader, kind of stuff like that, which, that's usually the easiest kind of anti-authority themes to jump to, because those have always been written in books and movies and everything, so it's easy to draw from that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we'll start seeing more current versions of that, even though that stuff is happening currently too. But I'm thinking more like relevant to, like you said, a certain region or area. And, going back to what you said, especially if, say, a certain country does it and it's a lot of hints at that kind of movement, people in that country could use that as like, oh, it might open their mind to a different view, a different way of thinking. And I mean, yeah, there might be some people out there that get motivated to cause destruction from a game, but to say that a game will do that to everybody, I mean, that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, a movie can persuade someone to kill someone if someone really believes that movie to be true.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Anything can do
novel, that. Like, look how many books are on the ban list because they're afraid of how they might motivate people, right? Or like change mindsets or things like that. So,
yeah.
It's an interesting idea, and I think with the expansion and the ease of game design that's out there now, the fact that we can pump games out so quickly and so efficiently, like you said, we are going to see games that are a lot more relevant to today's time and age. Like it could be something that happened a month ago, and all of a sudden you're playing a game that portrays that itself. And who knows? Maybe AI might get involved in this to make the games come out faster, and it can be used as a way to spread knowledge or information differently, just like books and movies do that today. I'm very curious to see what kind of tool games are going to be in the future, because I think as they expand and as games get more popular, and like I feel like everybody plays games now, like in some way, shape, or form. They're a gamer or they know about gaming culture. Like there's a lot of people who don't play games. Like I even got asked by my partner who knows nothing about games, and I haven't really brought it up to her at all. Like, oh, have you, like, she just came out of nowhere and she's like, oh yeah, I was talking to somebody at work about Tears of the Kingdom, and I was wondering if you were playing that. I'm like, yeah, I beat it. But like, why do you know about Tears of the Kingdom? And why aren't you just calling it Zelda? Right? Like, because you're not a gamer, right? I'm not expecting her to know the real, like, the full name of it, which I found really interesting because she could care less about games, but the conversation caught her attention. So like with it becoming more mainstream, similar to like with like comics and Marvel and things like that have become more mainstream, and now they're able to tackle some harder hitting issues. I feel like games are starting to be used as that. I mean, they've always been used as a tool to tell a story. They deliver a message in that way, but I feel like it's going to have a lot more weight and impact but behind it, because it's reaching a much wider audience. And even those who aren't playing the games, they can watch them, they can hear about them, they can hear interviews about them, hear what the plot was about, maybe some controversies behind it. I mean, even look at the Hogwarts game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it flopped because of the major controversy. So many people I've talked to who talk crap about that game, like openly admit to never actually playing the game. And it's not a bad one. It's actually a pretty decent one, in fact. But because of the controversy that was behind it, because of J.K. Rowling and her personal views, the game was a flop. And people were writing against it, right? Or protesting against this title. So I'm very curious to see what the landscape looks like in the future as this becomes more of a tool to deliver a true message and how it becomes more accepted. And it's something that we've been harping on this whole time, right? Like games are art and books are art, movies are art, right? So it's all finally kind of converging and allowing the true message to be heard by the masses and just accepted or absorbed in a different way. Right? You don't have to read a story anymore. You can live the story by playing as the characters. And I'm almost curious too about the fact that when you're reading a book, you actively know that I'm reading about someone's story, right? Like I'm hearing this secondhand. So of course it can have like tug at your heartstrings and be emotional. And not saying that games can't be that because they definitely can. But I'm wondering if the act of playing the game and playing through, let's say, a full rebellion in some cases, is that enough to kind of hinder that fire of causing said rebellion, right? Or stepping up because you've already done it, right? Like if you spend 100 hours in a game and the whole time you're fighting against this crazy government, like whenever you get out of it, you might be able to put two and two together and be like, oh, this is talking about our government and this is bad. But I've already spent 100 hours dealing with this problem. I'm over it, right? Like I'm wondering if that could be a negative thing too, with the spread of information and being able to actually live through the game and experience it that way, since it is a different way of delivering a medium or delivering a story. So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, if it can be used to, like, kind of deter, the wrong side of approaching situations. Because, I mean, we have seen that in games where certain things just made people not want to do certain stuff. But
right, like, will it desensitize us to this concept and this idea that's in front of us?
I mean, I think about, like, there was a part, like, in a Red Faction Guerrilla where, you start off like these workers that are rebelling, and it ends up being where it's, factions and stuff like that. And as you progress in the game, you start realizing, like, are we going too far? Because, they start, like, attacking, like, not just, like, the rival faction, but, civilians get in the way. And it's like, oh, well, they're in the way. Oops. And it's like, maybe that's not the best approach. And
or it's like villainizing the people who are standing up.
Yeah,
right?
It's like, it's good to act against authority to an extent because, a lot of times authority makes people feel weak or, powerless. That's the whole point of, power dominating a group, is because we should all be equal, right? We shouldn't have one source pushing us down. And a lot of times they'll use, people as power, and it's shitty. But, I think it's good to challenge authority to an extent, because if we all had the same views on reality, nothing would really progress. We'd all be complacent. There might be some thoughts that would help progress things, but to an extent, we'd be comfortable with life and wouldn't really want to go forward with anything. If we challenge authority, we'll see other viewpoints. And even if we don't agree with those viewpoints, maybe there's something from it that we can relate it to our thoughts and be like, well, maybe there's this little bit of it that makes sense. And, we don't have to agree, but we can both agree to something that, I don't know, not so much a middle ground, but some kind of commonality. And, say with, Red Faction Guerrilla, it's like, you you feel at first for the side you're on, but once the power gets strong and you feel like you can take on everything, like you start realizing like you slowly become a villain, almost like the villains that you're fighting. And it's an interesting take. And I know some games have tried to do that more often where, you start off as a hero and then you kind of come off as like a villain almost because you get too powerful and you start neglecting the good. You let the power get to your head. And I really like that when games do that because I feel like that's something that we never doesn't get explored much, at least in games.
What's that quote? Is it like power corrupts absolutely or something like that? Or power? I can't remember what
Sounds familiar, but I can't place the actual quote.
Yeah. I do like it whenever games kind of do that, or whenever they go through and put a meaning behind the way the authority figure was acting. Right? It's the same, or it's the other side of the same exact coin, where you can go complete like tyrannical dictatorship, make everyone's choices because you feel like you're doing the best thing to protect. Like they both can have the same reason for their actions. Both sides, the rebellion forces and the authoritative forces, it's to protect their people, their culture, their land, their whatever it is, right? It's to protect something that they cherish and hold dear to themselves. But there's different ways of approaching that problem, right? One way would be to lock it up forever because the best way to protect it is to keep it out of like the eyesight of everyone around you. Or you can protect by standing up for it, right? And letting it be free and protect the idea of it so that you share it with the masses and then hopefully that idea never dies out, right? Like there's different ways of approaching that same problem. And I like it whenever stories or games actually portray that in an interesting way, right? And it makes it much more impactful because there's no such thing as just a pure villain. No one is just bad to be bad. I mean, there's a Joker, but that's probably it, right? And most villains that are just maniacally evil are forgettable or comical or just not realistic. They don't hold any weight behind them. It's the ones that actually are grounded in reality and real world situations and real choices that you can see someone making if they were put into that situation, right? Like we always think that we would never harm somebody, but given the right situation, you probably would, right? If it was to protect your family or someone was threatening your family right in front of you, would you stand up? Would you hurt that person that was trying to hurt them? Or, right? Like it just gives, it's different situations and different life choices that you make in that split second that can really make you who you are and really change your viewpoint where now you can become like, you can see how easy it is to become that authority figure. And I really appreciate it whenever games do this because it just makes it more real and more personal in that aspect and more believable, right? And I do like that a lot. Now, like on the flip side of that, of course, there are some games out there that on the surface are really adorable, cute kids like games. And I'm wondering if like this is hurting like the cause or hurting the idea of rebelling or speaking out. Like there's that game Anarchy. You ever see that one or do you remember that game?
You brought this up, but I'm like, I feel like I've heard that name, but I cannot place it.
So you play as like adorable animals that are trying to basically you're causing anarchy, right? Like you're rioting in the streets and liberating captured like animals that then join your party, and the whole point is to get like a giant group of anarchists together and storm through the town and basically just riot through the city. But everything is just adorable, and it's almost
this game.
Yeah, it's a weird game. It's a really weird game, but I'm wondering if like titles like this, while it's cute and it's funny and it's like it's taking a very serious idea. Like the idea of rebelling against your government is or against authority figures is a very powerful idea, and it's something that shouldn't be like dumbed down to that level, in my opinion, right? Like it's making it almost a joke to do it. And, it's not like it's not one of the most popular games out there, but it's just, I mean, the fact that it's out there, right? And who knows, maybe other titles might appear like that, or there's other games that are similar to this that I just can't think of right now that use cute, adorable things to kind of rebel. And it almost makes it where it's just not serious anymore. And I'm wondering, like, if kids or young gamers or just gamers in general play a lot of these titles, like I mentioned earlier, are they becoming desensitized to these topics, or are they looking at anarchy or rebelling as a child's concept because they're using very cutesy, adorable characters, like tricking them right into thinking it's like a kid show or a kid's game? Because that's what it feels like, right? Like I'm curious if that can be harmful to the message, because downplaying anarchy, like, yeah, sure, anarchy, like, oh yeah, punk rock, right? Like it has a negative connotation in our society already, but now you're making it almost feel like a child's plaything in whenever you do something like this with it, right? Whenever you make it adorable little like critters that are just going through rebelling, and everything's kind of like chibi and chubby and like just really cute looking. So it kind of, I don't know, like it's weird. Like it does feel like it's dumbing down the message of what anarchy is actually supposed to stand for, and it's literally the right to stand up against your government, right? Like the like, think about if the civil rights movement now or like was fueled by cute adorable critters where people even take it seriously. It's like, oh yeah, look, it's an anarchist, right? Like it almost feels like they're making a joke out of it. But I don't know. I'm just wondering if that's
an interesting viewpoint, because I never really like looked at like kind of skewing a theme like that into like a way that's more like, oh, is approachable the right word? Like cutifying stuff, because I feel like I've definitely played like games that are like normally kind of a more serious tone, but they're like cutified. And I could see maybe, but I feel like when you think about it, a lot of games are kind of cute when some of the topics are pretty dark,
like that. What was it, the Iron Tails or Steel Tails or whatever? It's basically like the furry game, but they were just a bunch of orphans that were in a tank, and they're orphaned because their towns where
Fuga?
all their parents were killed. Yeah, Fuga. Like all their parents were killed in the war, and the way to use their super weapon on their tank is to literally sacrifice one of the children that are in the tank. But whenever you look at the characters, yeah, like you literally have to kill one of your friends there's a full relationship meter too. So if you have a better relationship with them, they actually do more damage. But you've spent this time getting to know this person. You give them gifts, you have conversations with them, and then you go and do that. It's like, oh God, like there's something like
that's war, baby.
Right. I mean, it is, unfortunately, right? Like it's whatever it is to survive. And it's one way of showing it, but I'm wondering, like, is cutifying something like hurting it?
I think,
right? Like, is it
to an extent,
or is it just making it more approachable? I don't know.
To me, I feel like it would make it more approachable. I think, if you imagine if what you just said was done in a more realistic look, like say a Call of Duty or your AAA game where it's human characters. One, it's going to disturb people in a different way than using a cute character, because it's more realistic. So of course people are going to be more grossed,
right? Like, shouldn't it be like impactful like that? I don't know.
Mean, if you sacrifice a cute character that is, your supposed friend, it's still pretty tough. Like, it's supposed to be a tough decision. And I mean, to some people, it is a harder decision than, say, a realistic looking character, because a realistic character, you can just play off as like, oh yeah, this is just, it's not real. But then when you see like one of these like drawn cute characters, you're like, oh man, it's kind of rough because they're so cute. I don't want to do this. But
It's like sacrificing a friend in Colton the Lamb. Or
yeah, something like that. And I feel like when you do something cute like this, you're bringing up a topic or a subject to maybe an audience that wouldn't be interested in those kind of themes in a different way. Like going back to a more realistic approach to it, a lot of people wouldn't play that because, well, one, it's not their style of game. Two, it might just feel weird because they look more like, say, you. Whereas when it's an animal, you can relate to it, but it's not like you can 100% relate to a fox.
Right.
Versus,
you can disassociate a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like where it doesn't feel as horrifying because it's not a human. But I think that, making it into this style, you're reaching an audience that probably have never experienced a game like that and normally wouldn't, but you're opening their eyes to something that could be realistic, especially when it comes to like the Fuga games, because I know they just had a sequel that touches something that it wouldn't work in another game, right? Like you could not do that in a realistic looking game. That would just be weird. But
it'd be demented.
It works in this game because the way the animation is. And I think that's kind of something we're starting to see in games where people are starting to pick an art style or a look that goes with a theme really well and explains it in a way that is not just making it look like your, Unreal asset flip and throwing dark themes on it. Like, oh no, this is like hand drawn. This is a look, and we're going with this theme, and we're going with it. And I think, it could have a powerful story to tell. It's not like it's a real story, but it's something that, could affect someone. I mean, obviously we all know war sucks, but for some people out there, they play that game, they're like, oh, like, this isn't good. It's portraying it in a dark way. But yeah, I never really correlated that before, which is kind of interesting. I was always like, oh, cute. And then I just kind of avoided most dark themes in games.
Right. Because, it does feel like it's an easy way to show a dark theme or a really impactful thing, but it also makes you take it less seriously in a way, right? I think probably one of the best versions of a rebellion that I've seen in a game and portrayed well and with realistic visuals was Detroit Becoming Human. That whole like rebellion and seeing it from the ground up and the early upstarts of it and seeing the pivotal like climactic moment of this and them taking to the streets and everything and watching other androids or cyborgs like dying in the streets, right? And like you can still feel for them because they look like humans, and that was kind of the whole point. Is they're thinking for themselves now. They're falling in love. They want to be they want to start families of their own, and you're seeing them gunned down. But to the regular humans that are there, it's just a machine that they're turning off. Basically, it's like them just pulling the plug on a lamp or something, right? Like it's nothing. But knowing and getting to know these characters and getting to know how them like learning the world themselves for the first time and seeing that innocence that they have of being able to speak up in a moment of whenever they're so fresh to the world, right? And then like looking at it from our viewpoints where we've grown up around this world forever, around these ideas that maybe are not beneficial for human beings in general, right? Like they can be very harmful. There's laws in place that are incredibly harmful for humans, and we just turn a blind eye to them. And it takes someone looking at it from fresh eyes. And that's what I like about Detroit Becoming Human so much, is the fact that it shows that aspect of looking at this with fresh eyes, with fresh ideals. You can see how corrupt and horrible things actually are. And no matter how much we want to think that equality is there, it's really not, right? There's always someone that is looked at as lesser than someone else, right? And it was a very interesting way of doing it. And I really do enjoy that game a lot. And I think what really made it heavier is the fact that, these are your choices that you made to lead up to this point. And the fact that there were so many branching paths in that game, it was interesting to see the impact of your actual actions. And just like playing it the way I did, whereas I played it one playthrough, didn't go back and change any choices, because you can do that. You can go and rewind time if you think that there was an outcome that you didn't really like so much. But just kind of like playing it all the way through with just accepting what happens was really hard to do at certain points, because there's certain things where you're like, oh my God, I killed that person, right? Like not directly, but like my actions did that. They hurt somebody, and not being able to turn back time because, and it's a game, right? But it gave a really interesting simulation and a peek at real world or real life in general. So I think as far as like rebellions go and going against authority, Detroit really did a fantastic job at doing that, about capturing it in a real life setting, in my opinion, at least. So
I forgot about that whole. I forget about that game daily or all the time, and then you bring it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that.
It's hard for me to not forget it since I used it so much in my game when I was getting my degree.
Right.
Because it just came out, I think, towards the end of my of getting my degree in game design. So there ended up being like I wrote a paper about it. I used clips of it, and I was like, the impact of that game really it meant a lot. And like I mentioned earlier in this episode, like my partner doesn't play games. She played that one all the way through. That's a game she actually beat and enjoyed and wanted to play it from the get-go. So that was really interesting to see. Yeah. It's different. It's different.
I like the kind of... It's weird because I feel like this is a series that I can't get into, but I really like the idea behind them. But like the Watch Dogs games,
yeah,
kind of rising up, and I think
hack everything. Yeah,
I really liked Watch Dogs 2 in a way because it felt realistic. Like just a bunch of teens that are smart. They're not some brooding dude behind a computer with a hoodie up. That not like fucking Mr. Robot. Like this is like, oh, this is kind of how realistic hackers look. They look just like you and me. Like it was interesting, taking on like a corrupt social media billionaire kind of person. And with Legion, I heard it's more about a government thing, which is kind of interesting, more realistic. And I think games definitely focus more on the anti-government side of things versus like kind of like workers rising up and that kind of rebellion. And it's interesting because you never see it, and maybe for a good reason, from the other side, where you're the villain per se. I mean, there's games where you fight rebellions and squash rebellions. I mean, but it's never usually those rebellions in those games. It's like they're not fighting for a good cause. It's not like
right. They're fighting for chaos. It's never
like some
eco-friendly group that's trying, right? Like
And I mean, the world doesn't need a fascist simulator kind of game. I mean, I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, well with Warhammer 40K, you know, with those knights, like, oh, like you're fighting for." I don't want to get into Warhammer. I've tried, and it's just like, but I see it,
It's
and
a lot.
everyone's like, "Yeah, it's like these guys are like fascists and stuff," and I'm like, "Oh, interesting." And it's like,
It's making a big splash right now. There's a lot of teens that are actually talking about Warhammer and that they are starting to play like tabletop now because of the game.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a very cool look and setting, but I'm already into so much stuff and so in the games that I can't. The most I'll do with Warhammer is bolt gun, or
Come on,
like,
you're not gonna start paint miniatures in your house and all that.
hell no. I have a friend that does it. I'm just like, As cool as it is to see like those landscapes with all the little miniatures on it, no. I'd rather have a massive Lego city.
Yeah,
But
the amount of work that goes into it for like you probably playing it once a month, if that, is like insane.
oh yeah. But I feel like other than that, like you don't really see you playing as the great evil. And I mean, that might be a good reason because it might actually give someone ideas, right? Like, I know it's kind of going back on what we said earlier that games might help Dieter unless you portray this villain as like, oh yeah, these are not good things. But of
Mm.
course, there's going to be people out there that are like, yeah, I agree with this. This is how our government should be run. And they may not quote the game, but they'll get ideas from it. And I think that's kind of the dangers of it. Because I've always been curious. Like, so many games have always been where you're the good guy. And I know recently, in the past, like, decade, we've maybe seen more games where you do play as a villain. Not often, but it's there. But you never play as, like, the evil leader causing deaths to civilians, because usually when we do have those kind of edgy games, they either get shunned or they're just kind of too edgy for the sake of being edgy.
Mhm.
But I'm curious if someone did one well, like how, like would it work out or not, or if people would be like grossed out by the idea.
Right.
And I think maybe it's good that we don't have those kind of games, because a lot of these games where you're rising up against a government, think about countries that might have these kind of realistic issues, but you know they don't see it from a different world's viewpoint. They could see something totally different. Hell, who knows, maybe they could see something in it that seems like a good alternative to what's going on, and they could start their own group of like help without having to resort to violence. And I
Mhm.
think, I mean, same could be said out here in the US, where it's like, if there's issues, maybe there's a less violent alternative that we could learn from a game story. But I don't think we'll see current takes on this kind of theme until maybe a few years from now. I feel like we're still in a hot spot when it comes to these kind of issues, and when it comes to games, it gets very touchy uh, with this kind of theme. Because you never know. It could end up being very bad. It could end up being very edgy for no reason. And I don't know, but I think in the end, these games bring to light topics that should be looked at deeper. I think for me, Wolfenstein, especially the two new ones, really, I feel like a lot of people were like, "Whoa!" Like, in a world where the Nazis won, and you're like the small rebel team, like that. It's cool seeing you take on this global superpower, and it's it's good to feel like you're taking on a greater evil in these kind of games. And that's, obviously that's the whole goal behind it, is that you're taking down some evil regime. But in a weird way, I don't want to say a lot of these games are propaganda, because I feel like when I was kind of looking stuff into this episode, there were people saying like, oh, this game is propaganda and stuff like that. But a lot of these aren't, from what I can tell. I mean, maybe if you go on like Itch.io and you look up like
conspiracy theories.
Yeah, you look up conspiracy theory, or you look up like how to be a tanky, like, like maybe some, that obviously, but it's like, you look at Just Cause and it's like, you can't call it propaganda. You're just some dude with hookshot going around blowing fascist camps up. Like, what's wrong with that? I think games like this are good because they challenge viewpoints that maybe for some people agree with the wrong side, or I don't want to say wrong, but the bad side in these games. Or maybe someone will get their viewpoints challenged in these kind of games, and that's good. It honestly, like, no matter where your view in politics it like lies, if your views get challenged and you can come away from it maybe learning something more about yourself, or say it's something you 100% disagree with, maybe you learn a better way of handling the situation and learning from it, and being able to not just walk away from them without, say, exploding, but you can maybe open that person's mind up, or at least bring to light a thought that maybe they haven't heard against the hundreds of other voices that they probably shut out. Maybe your voice is that voice of reason, and you never know, but it's always worth saying something. It sitting by passively leads to a simple life, but speaking out against something that you feel is not right might lead to a happier life in the safe situation.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Hope you guys really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm curious of what you all are thinking about right now. If games really do make you more rebel against authority, is it making rebellion more prevalent in our world, or is it desensitizing the idea of rebelling? And I do have one little question, or like little thought for you guys to kind of take away from this, or just think about. There's so many games and stories and movies out there that have you follow the quote-unquote good guys to the end, right? They rebel against the empire, they take their land back, they free their people, but then the story ends right there. What happens in the next 20 years, right? Whenever they have to make those hard decisions, is everyone going to get equal rights, right? Like, is it really going to be that rosy cheery, or is there going to be another group that is forgotten about or not given special treatment for some reason because they didn't help or they weren't friends or something like that? And now they are the rebellious group. They're the new good guys. And now the people that you played before, they're the ones that you're fighting against, right? Like, what happens when those credits roll? Like, what's up next over the next few years? Anyway, just a thought. Something popped up in my head. So we'll talk to you guys next week with more games, more ideas, and everything in between. But until then, bye for now.